The wind danced through the quiet streets of Maplewood as twilight settled over the town. Orange lanterns flickered on porches, and paper ghosts swung gently from tree branches. The air smelled of candy corn, pumpkin spice, and freshly raked leaves. In the heart of it all stood an old, ivy-covered house at the end of Willow Lane, the kind of house that children dared each other to approach. It wasn't haunted, at least that's what everyone said, but on Halloween night, it always seemed to whisper secrets to the wind. Inside that house lived Emma, Leo, and Mila, three best friends who had planned the ultimate Halloween sleepover. They had costumes ready. Emma was a witch with a sparkling hat, Leo a pirate with a plastic sword, and Mila a mischievous black cat. After hours of trick-or-treating and sugar-filled giggles, they decided to play one more game before bed. "Let's play hide and seek," Leo said, his voice full of excitement. "But not just anywhere," Emma added with a grin. "Let's play in the dark." They turned off every light in the house until only the moonlight spilled through the curtains. Shadows stretched across the floor like silent rivers. "No flashlights," Mila reminded them. "That's the rule." Emma volunteered to count first. She pressed her face against the wall and began, 1, 2, 3, her voice echoed faintly in the stillness, and her heart thumped faster with each number. Leo and Mila darted off, their footsteps soft against the creaking floorboards. Leo slipped behind the tall living room curtains, while Mila crawled under the dining table draped in a ghost-patterned cloth. From somewhere near the stairs came a faint giggle, quickly stifled. When Emma reached 10, she turned around slowly, her eyes adjusting to the moonlit shadows. "Ready or not," she whispered, "here I come." But as Emma took her first step, something unexpected happened. The floor beneath her groaned, not like an ordinary creak, but a long, low sigh. The curtain near the window fluttered though the air was still. Emma frowned. "Nice try, Leo," she whispered, inching closer. But when she pulled back the curtain, Leo wasn't there. Instead, a cold draft brushed her cheek, and a whisper drifted through the dark, "You're it." Emma froze where she stood, her hand still clutching the curtain. The whisper, "You're it," seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. For a moment, she thought Leo or Mila might be playing a trick, but the voice had sounded too soft, too close, and too unfamiliar. The old house creaked again, as if settling into the game with her. She took a deep breath and called out, "Nice try, guys. You almost got me." Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it behind a laugh. From upstairs came a faint thud, like footsteps. "Aha," she said under her breath, feeling braver now. "Found you." She tiptoed toward the staircase, the wooden boards groaning under her weight. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon and dust, and every shadow looked alive in the moonlight. As she reached the top step, the hallway stretched before her, dim, quiet, lined with old portraits of people she didn't recognize. Their painted eyes seemed to follow her as she whispered, "Leo? Mila?" Downstairs, hidden under the dining table, Mila stifled a giggle. She could hear Emma's footsteps creaking above and thought she had the perfect hiding spot. But then, she heard another sound. A slow, dragging noise coming from the kitchen, like someone moving a chair. She peeked out, expecting to see Leo sneaking around. The kitchen door was slightly open, and she could swear she saw movement, a shadow gliding across the tiles. "Leo?" she whispered. No answer. Just the faint echo of her own voice. Meanwhile, Leo crouched behind the sofa, holding his breath. He hadn't moved since the game began. The room was still, too still. He wanted to jump out and scare the girls, but something about the air felt wrong. It was colder now. A shiver crept down his spine. He peeked out from behind the couch, and his heart skipped. A small shape, maybe a child, stood by the hallway door, just visible in the moonlight. "Emma," he whispered. The figure tilted its head, then vanished into the dark. Emma reached the end of the hallway and opened the last door. The attic stairs creaked above her. That was strange, they'd never gone up there. Her pulse quickened. She could hear faint breathing from somewhere behind the door. "Gotcha," she said, flinging it open. But the attic was empty. Only a dusty mirror leaned against the far wall. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw 3 shapes reflected behind her, 1 witch, 1 pirate, 1 cat, and a 4th figure, taller, cloaked in shadow. Emma stumbled back from the attic door, her breath catching in her throat. The dusty air prickled her skin, and the mirror seemed to pulse faintly in the moonlight, as if reflecting something that wasn't quite real. She blinked, once, twice, and the extra shadow vanished. "It's just my imagination," she whispered, forcing a laugh. But the sound felt hollow. Somewhere below, a floorboard groaned again. Maybe the others were moving. Maybe. She clutched the stair railing and began her careful descent, each step echoing through the silence like a countdown. Downstairs, Mila had finally crept out from under the table. Her knees trembled slightly as she looked around the dark dining room. The moving shadow from before had disappeared, but now the chairs were in a different position, slightly turned, as if someone had just stood up from one. "Leo," she called softly. Her whisper barely carried. The only response was the faint ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. Mila took a step toward the kitchen door, but it swung open by itself with a soft creak. A cold wind brushed her hair, though every window was shut in the living room. Leo was done hiding. "Okay, game's over," he called, trying to sound brave. His voice bounced off the walls. "You can come out now." But instead of his friends, something else answered, a rhythmic tapping on the windowpane. Tap, tap, tap. He turned slowly, his eyes wide. On the other side of the glass, he saw a faint outline, small hands pressed against the window, pale and still. "Emma," he whispered. But when he blinked, the hands were gone, leaving only foggy prints that slowly faded away. Emma reached the bottom of the stairs and spotted Leo standing rigid by the window. She hurried over, her witch hat bouncing slightly with each step. "Did you see something?" she asked. Leo nodded, but his lips trembled too much to speak. Mila appeared from the kitchen doorway, her black cat ears tilted in confusion. "Guys," she said quietly, "something weird is happening. I heard footsteps in there." The 3 stood close together, the moonlight framing their faces in silver. For the first time that night, they all felt the same chill, the feeling that they weren't alone. Then, all at once, the lights flickered on by themselves. The house groaned, and the front door, which they'd locked earlier, creaked open an inch. The wind outside howled like laughter. And there, on the hallway floor, appeared something they hadn't noticed before, 4 small sets of footprints made of dust, leading from the attic stairs to where they stood. 3 matched their size. The 4th did not. The 3 children stood frozen, staring at the dusty footprints. The 4th set, longer, heavier, led toward the hallway mirror, then disappeared entirely. "This isn't funny anymore," Mila whispered, clutching Emma's sleeve. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the wind outside. Even the ticking clock had stopped. Emma took a shaky breath and said, "Maybe someone else came in. Maybe it's just," but she couldn't finish. The truth hung between them, unspoken yet certain. Something else was playing with them. Leo swallowed hard and tried to sound brave. "If someone's here, we'll find them," he said. "We'll end the game." His pirate sword clattered softly as he lifted it like a torch. The trio moved together through the living room, each step stirring up tiny clouds of dust. The air grew colder as they reached the hallway mirror, the same one Emma had seen upstairs in the attic. It shouldn't have been there. They hadn't brought it down. Yet it stood now against the wall, its silver surface rippling faintly as though it were breathing. Mila took a hesitant step closer. Her reflection wavered strangely. For a moment, her cat ears flickered out of sight, replaced by a pale face she didn't recognize. A small boy, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, stood beside her reflection, smiling faintly. "He's behind me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Emma grabbed her arm and yanked her back, but when they looked again, only their three reflections stared back. The mirror had gone still. "We should go," Emma said quickly. "Now." They turned to run for the front door, but it slammed shut before they could reach it. The house shuddered, lights flickering violently. The children huddled together, their costumes rustling in the wind that seemed to come from nowhere. "Why won't it let us leave?" Leo shouted. And then, just as suddenly, a voice, soft, young, and echoing, whispered again, "Don't stop playing." The mirror glowed faintly, and in its reflection, they could see the ghostly boy again, standing behind them, eyes wide and curious, as though he didn't mean to scare them at all. Emma turned slowly to face the figure. He looked no older than them, maybe 8 or 9. His skin shimmered like moonlight, and his clothes were dusty and torn. "You were hiding," Emma said softly. "Weren't you?" The ghost nodded, his eyes sad but gentle. "I didn't want to be alone," he whispered. "You found me." For a moment, the house seemed to sigh, the wind stopped, the light steadied, and the cold faded into warmth. The ghost smiled faintly, then began to fade, his outline dissolving into sparkles of soft light. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're it now," and just like that, he was gone. For a long moment, no one moved. The soft glow from the mirror slowly dimmed, and the whisper of, "You're it now," lingered in the still air. Emma, Leo, and Mila stood together, eyes wide, hearts still pounding from the strange encounter. But the fear that had once gripped them was fading, replaced by something gentler, sadness, perhaps, for the lonely boy who had only wanted to play. The mirror now looked ordinary again, cracked slightly at one corner, reflecting only 3 tired children in rumpled costumes. Leo finally broke the silence. "He wasn't trying to scare us," he said softly. "He just wanted friends." Mila nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her paw-shaped glove. "Maybe he's been waiting all this time," she whispered, "for someone to find him." Emma looked around the old house, the flickering lanterns, the creaky floorboards, the smell of dust and autumn air, and felt something shift inside her. The house no longer seemed eerie or cold. It felt peaceful, almost thankful. They decided to clean up a little before leaving, picking up the candy wrappers and folding the blankets they'd left on the couch. When they opened the front door again, the wind had calmed. The night outside was still and bright, the moon glowing softly above the street. As they stepped onto the porch, they noticed something curious. 4 small pumpkins sat in a row beside the door. 3 were theirs from earlier, but the 4th one, slightly older and cracked, had a faint candle glowing inside. Mila leaned closer and gasped. Inside the pumpkin, carved with careful, clumsy hands, were the words, "Thanks for playing." The 3 friends looked at one another, speechless. Then Emma smiled, a slow, warm smile that made the others smile too. "Guess we weren't the only ones having fun tonight," she said. Leo chuckled softly, and Mila squeezed both their hands. Together, they walked down the path, the sound of leaves crunching beneath their shoes, the house watching quietly as the door closed on its own. Later that night, as they drifted to sleep in Emma's room, a faint voice echoed softly through the house one last time, not haunting, but happy, "Good night." The friends never forgot that Halloween, the night when a simple game of hide and seek became a story of friendship that stretched beyond time. Every year after that, when the pumpkins glowed and the wind whispered through the trees, they remembered the boy who had once waited to be found. And somewhere, in the heart of Willow Lane, the house glowed gently in the moonlight, content at last.